Welcome to PsychicBent. My name is Carrie.
And I'm Kim. We are two sisters wanting to help other psychics learn and grow in their abilities and to help educate about spirits, angels, and everything psychic. Welcome back, listeners, to PsychicBent. Thank you so much for joining us this week. We are going to be doing our Halloween episode. We're kind of excited about it, and we're going to be issuing a trigger warning to everyone. We will be discussing events that have taken place in these haunted places and also haunted items. And it may be triggering to some people. It may not necessarily be something that you want to listen to. And the younger people, the youngers, you might not want to listen around the children. But we hope that you enjoy the episode anyway, because we did find it very interesting on our research. So, Carrie, why don't you go ahead and start us off with haunted places, because some of these are a little creepy.
Yes, and hopefully the haunted places that I selected are, some are going to be very well known and some may not be so well known for your area, especially if you are one of our overseas listeners. You know what, Kim, I guess we should have branched out to places other than the United States for haunted places. I didn't think about that.
We'll make a note for next year.
Yes, we need to make that an episode, I think, of haunted places all over. So I'm going to touch upon a couple of haunted places. Now, there's some that you'll probably get a little more content than with others, because those are ones that have always drawn me to them. So you're going to get maybe you're going to get more information on Lizzie Borden and Maplecroft than you probably would for one of the other items that we're going to do. The Lizzie Borden case has always fascinated me. We've mentioned before on the podcast the paranormal team of Kindred Spirits, who does paranormal investigations. Paramount Plus, I believe, is what they're on. And they did investigate the Lizzie Borden house, and then they investigated Maplecroft, which was the house that Lizzie and her sister moved to after the trial. And it's just really interesting how it all plays out. And I sent Kim a link of that episode. So are we able to put that out there, or is that a copyright thing?
I will definitely put it in our sources.
Okay.
So people can always find things there in their sources.
Yeah, so you could always go to the Kindred Spirits and Google Kindred Spirits and the episode with Maplecroft. And I just find it very interesting. And I'm going to reference that again when we get to the Villisca Axe Murder House, because we are going to go over that as well. And they did a very chilling episode on that as well. And I think that's kind of what got my curiosity going on these. Now, the thing for me, though, is when I do research on things like this, I have to release it so that energy goes away. So you may want to keep that in mind if you're listening to this episode and you're really into it and it's really good, but now the episode's done. Release the energy from it if you want, because otherwise, how my mind works is I keep thinking about stuff that interests me, and I don't want to think about Lizzie Borden while I'm going to bed. You know what I'm saying?
Why not? Yeah. No, I get it.
just not my, and I don't want to draw that energy to me either as a psychic.
Yeah.
So just kind of going to throw that out there as well. So we're going to start with the Lizzie Borden house. Now, I'm not going to do the nursery rhyme because I just think that's really morbid. But basically, for those who are not familiar with this actual event, there was the father, Andrew, and the stepmother, Abby Borden, that were murdered in their home. Now, there's a lot of theories surrounding what happened. And we're not going to get into all the theories of it because, that's not part of this Halloween episode, I would think. But the people that were around in the house during that period was, of course, the two that were murdered. There were two daughters, and then there was an Irish maid. And supposedly the Irish maid and one daughter was Emma, the other daughter was Lizzie. And supposedly Lizzie was the one that possibly murdered her stepmother and her father. Now, what I find is very interesting about the Borden house is it is documented to be haunted. And you can actually spend the night in the boarding house. They've got different rooms. You've got the actual guest bedroom where the stepmother was killed that you could sleep in.
Mm-hmm.
There's the upstairs attic, which has 2 rooms up there that share a bathroom, and that would have been where the maid Bridget would have slept up there. That would have been more the servants' area. You can rent it for the night, specific rooms or the entire house. Now, of course, all through this house, and this house is in Mills, is it Mills River?
I thought it was Fall River.
Fall River, that's it. So the crime was gruesome. First of all, Mr. Borden was not a nice man. He was a wealthy man. He was more of a miserish personality. And so there are many events that happened leading up to the actual murder. You had where Lizzie had pigeons that were in an outbuilding, and she built them a little structure for them. Well, her father went and killed all the pigeons, which made Lizzie mad. So you had situations like this where, the father gave gifts of real estate to his current wife's family, but nothing to the girls. So you see that there's this rivalry, and you can see that there's a lot of bad blood happening between the members of this family.
Jealousy and such, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of jealousy. There's been some substantial, I don't say if it's substantial evidence, but there's been documentation that Lizzie Borden was probably homosexual. And in the time period of the 1890s, then it would not have been legal to openly be homosexual. So it was a very difficult time in that type of era to be a homosexual person, whether male or female. And it's supposed that the maid Bridget, and that was not verified, but supposed that the maid Bridget and Lizzie possibly had a relationship. So they had the night before the murder, they actually had house guests. They had, it was Lizzie's mother's relative that came and stayed. There was going to be a business transaction between him and Mr. Borden. And so this gentleman actually slept in the guest room the night before the murder. And that would have been August 4th of 1892. And then he went off to visit his niece at 8:48 in the morning, just to get an ox and then visit with his niece is basically what he did. Andrew went for a morning walk. So August 4th is when the murder happened. So I'm sure if you want to stay at the inn, that's probably a booked up time frame, hard to get in. It was Emma and Lizzie's chores to clean the guest room. So it was a little unusual that the stepmom, Abby, was up there cleaning the guest room. And she was up there doing it sometime between 9 and 10 a.m. or 10:30 a.m. And she was making the bed. And I find it interesting that they have forensic evidence in 1892. But forensic evidence, from the investigation shows that Abby was facing her killer at the time she was attacked. And she was struck on the side of the head with a hatchet, which cut her just above the ear, which of course caused her to turn and fall on the floor. And that created contusions on her nose and forehead. Her killer then struck her multiple times, delivering 17 hits to the back of her head, killing her. 17. That's a crime of passion.
Yep.
That's not, I broke in to steal something. She was basically killed first. And then Andrew, the father, he returned around 10:30 in the morning, and he tried to open the front door, and his key wouldn't work. So the maid is basically who unlocked the door for him. It had been jammed. And then she basically helped him take his boots off, and then he laid down to take a nap. So here he is laying in the, drawing room on this little couch, and he gets attacked. And he's sleeping when his attack happens. So basically, Andrew was sleeping. Someone came in and killed him. and he was slumped on the couch in the downstairs sitting room. He was struck 10 to 11 times with a hatchet. One of his eyes had been split cleanly in two, which suggests that he had been asleep when attacked.
Right. Exactly.
That is such a horrific. So you can imagine, as a psychic, the vibe of this house.
Yeah. Right. It's got to be heavy air in there, heavy energy in that house.
Yes. And what's strange is another axe murder had actually occurred in Fall River on June 1st, 5 days before the Borden trial began. So 5 days before Lizzie's about ready to go on trial for murder, because she was in the house, but there was contradictory of her testimony. What the maid said. It was just like one big, if it could go wrong, it went wrong in this investigation. But because there was another axe murder that occurred 5 days before the trial, this victim was a woman and who was found hacked to death in her kitchen. So there was very similarities between this murder and the Borden murders. It was very striking. And this was a Portuguese immigrant who did and was convicted with the murder of the other woman. But he was determined not to be in the vicinity of the Fall River at the time of the Borden murder. But that's enough to give you doubt, isn't it?
Well, yeah.
Onto who really, did the murder.
Yeah. Right.
And at first, when I'm going over this research, I'm like, oh my gosh, all these people with axes and what's going on? And I'm thinking, well, guns probably weren't as easy to get back then. I don't know. But I'm like, well, everybody had an axe.
Well, everybody
had an hatchet.
Everybody did have an axe and a hatchet at their houses because they had to chop the wood and cut wood up to go into their wood-burning stoves, fireplaces, whatever. There was always a hatchet around.
Yeah. And what I found so bizarre in the research, do you know what they used as evidence at the trial?
What did they use?
The victims' heads.
Yes, the actual heads.
They were removed during the autopsy, and the skulls were admitted as evidence during the trial and presented on June 5th. Could you? And of course, Lizzie fainted, which who wouldn't? I mean, I would be like, whoa, what the heck? But one thing was strange was she had tried to purchase, prior to the murder that happened, prussic acid, which is hydrogen cyanide. And she claimed that she wanted to use it to clean a sealskin cloak. But of course, that would have killed anybody if it had been ingested. So what's interesting about this is all the paranormal investigations that have done in the house. Lizzie's not at the Borden house. I mean, I have yet to come across any concrete Lizzie's answered any questions at the Borden house. Have you, Kim?
I haven't run across anything that she's there.
Yeah. Now, there's a lot of cool evidence if you go to the Lizzie Borden house website. But when Kindred Spirits was there, they were getting the man. They were getting a agitated male who didn't want to deal with anybody. And he kind of sounded like the personality of Andrew. So it's very suspected that Andrew is there at the Borden house for sure. But there seems to be other entities and other things that go on. But when you have a murder like that and all the attention that's drawn there, you could bring in other kind of entities as well. Don't you agree?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah. So there's different energy levels, different things in that house. So it's if you're ever in that area, you want to check it out, you should definitely check it out. Now, they do have a lot of things from that era, like they have a hatchet out. They have anything related to the crime. Mm-hmm. They do have out. Now, when Lizzie was acquitted, she and her sister, his father was wealthy, but he lived very miserly, like I said earlier. So they always wanted to live on the hill. So they went and bought a house in Mills River on the hill, which is where the affluent people lived. Now, personally, I would have left town. Found me a hill in another state. But that's what they did. She didn't want to leave town.
She didn't want to leave town because she wanted to be there when her name was finally cleared.
Yes.
Whenever the true killer was found, then she could pretty much rub it in the face of all those people that persecuted her verbally and such and made that horrible rhyme about her and everything.
Yeah. And she wanted to face her accusers. So that takes a lot of strength. So the woman had some grit
Mm-hmm.
because she was shunned. If people that had been her friends would see her walking down the street, they would go the other way.
Yeah.
So Lizzie named their mansion Maplecroft. And she and Emma moved into that, a 7-bedroom, 3.5 bathroom, luxurious home. Now you're talking late 1890s. That's very luxurious for back then to have that many bathrooms.
Mm-hmm.
And the side note is the house on, I think it was Main Street, where the Lizzie Borden house is. He was so miserly, he would not have indoor plumbing, and he never installed indoor plumbing,
Yep. That's right.
even though it was very common for affluent people, and people started getting indoor plumbing in their houses. That was very common. He wouldn't even pay for that. That's how miserly he was. So I'm sure having 3.5 bathrooms was really a big coup for these women. She tried to recreate herself, so she no longer called herself Lizzie. Her name was actually Elizabeth and went by Lizzie. So she changed her name to Lizbeth and made up calling cards that said Lisbeth Borden, trying to just recreate. Now, the people that own the Lizzie Borden house had the opportunity to purchase Maplecroft. And, since they had a relationship with kindred spirits, which is Amy and Adam are the investigators, they offered them the opportunity to come into Maplecroft and do an investigation when no other paranormal had at that point been allowed to. So that episode is very interesting, because you do find out a little bit more about Lizzie or Lisbeth, and you find out a little bit more about she had a relationship with an actress. She was going to throw a lavish party for this actress. Emma got angry, moved out of the house that night, and never spoke to Lisbeth again or Lizzie again.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of tells you that perhaps that relationship had been uncovered, and Emma was a highly religious person. So it kind of makes that fall into place. But when Amy and Adam went in, they weren't getting a lot of interaction. And they brought Chip Coffey in, which is a very renowned psychic. Blindfolded him, didn't tell him where he was at. And it's always interesting when you do that to a psychic to see what they get. And he kept getting this woman right up on him, right, being very erratic energy, just erratic energy. And it kind of was going with what people said Lizzie was like. She led a reclusive life, but she had a lot of energy. She was agitated. She was irritated with how things went. It's just kind of interesting that he was getting this. She was agitated. There was anger. There was sadness. But she really was, what was coming through in the house, but she didn't want to talk to anybody. She didn't want to discuss anything. And she definitely didn't want to talk about the murders. So if she had not committed the murders, which I don't, who knows? We'll never know. But if she didn't commit the murders, you would say why she didn't want to talk about it. If she was constantly being bothered about the murders, she definitely would want to talk about it, correct?
Well, I agree.
Yeah, and as a spirit, there's a very good possibility she never transitioned for fear of what was to come. So she goes to her spirit. There's that as well. But, there is a type of investigation where one person has the spirit box and they have headphones on that's attached to the spirit box and they blindfold themselves. And then you have someone in the other room on a walkie-talkie. There's a walkie-talkie in the room with the person with the headphones on, but they can't hear the walkie-talkie, what's coming through. And the person in the other room is asking questions and writing down the answers. You've seen that, right, Kim?
Yes, I have.
Yeah. So they basically, Adam has this nice, soothing personality when he talks. He could get mad, but he also has that, okay, calm you down, kind of talk. And, his opening one of the questions was, is there a spirit that you can identify yourself? And they quickly got a response. They thought it said Lizzie Borden, but when they went to play it back to review it, it said Lisbeth.
Interesting.
And then they asked her if she wanted to talk about or if she was affiliated with the murder house. And at that point, the conversation stopped. So redirecting that investigation, Adam kind of like said, you know what, she didn't want to talk about the murders. It's obvious she didn't want to talk about the murders. Well, the people that had purchased the house, they had memorabilia all over Maplecroft that was similar to what was up at the Borden house. Things that pertained to the murder, an axe, things all over that were reminders of what happened
Mm-hmm.
at the other house. So they made a big Adam's like, you know what? I think we need to remove this stuff. I think it's agitating her, it's aggravating her. Let's move it. Let's make a big production out of it, and let's see if she talks to us. And so they did. They made a big production, moved everything out. See, Lizzie, we're taking it out. It's not coming back. And then they did the spirit box experiment with the walkie-talkies, and she started talking to him. She started talking to Adam. It was really kind of cool. But I just find it very interesting.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Yeah. Don't you have anything to add to the Borden one?
No, I think that's real good.
So then we talked about Bell Witch before, I think on the last Halloween episode. I don't think we went into a big detail with it. Now, the Bell Witch is probably, that story dates back, well, the Bell family dates back to 1804. And this happened in Robertson County, Tennessee, where the Bell family, John Bell and his wife Lucy and their children, purchased 320 acres of farmland along the Red River, and the family lived a peaceful life for 13 years until the summer of 1817. The family would experience things that would change their lives forever. They'd start to see strange animals on the farm that led to hearing eerie sounds in the cabin. Several accounts talk about, what was causing the disturbances. Was there something tormenting the Bell family? The sounds the family heard escalated to a voice speaking directly to them until it could be heard in every room of the house. It especially terrorized John's youngest daughter, Betsy, with beatings that left her unconscious. That's pretty scary.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Because her hair was being pulled, she's being
Yeah.
slapped, all kinds of things
Yeah.
like
She
that.
was,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah. It only makes you think of The Conjuring. It does kind of this activity, and the notoriety of this unseen force, it spread through the countryside like crazy. And so the people were camping outside the farm, hoping to witness the strange phenomenon. And so they started calling it the Bell Witch. And then the Bell Witch, or the voice, vowed to kill John Bell and subsequently took credit for his death 3 years later on December 20th, 1820, when a vial was found next to his deathbed with a strange liquid inside. John Bell's death was attributed to the witch, making it Tennessee's the only state to recognize a person's death to the supernatural.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Yeah. Yeah. The Bell Witch was also known for her accurate predictions of the future and her vows to the John Bell's children of her return in future years. I don't know. There's nothing to show if that happened. I couldn't find anything on that, but I thought that was very interesting. So it's outside of Nashville, and you could go. There's a cave, so you can. I just sent Kim the link if you're interested to check it out. You're in that area.
Right.
Now the next one is the Villisca Axe Murder House, and this one is to me the most chilling because you have this family, mother, father, two children. They're going to go to a children's program at the church. Now, we're talking 1858, I believe, is when this happened. And they were taking two children from another family, of an affluent family, with them to do this, go to church for this church program. So they come home, and it's it's a 5-minute walk from the church to the house. And the family's last name was Moore. And, they all, went to bed. The two girls stayed overnight. So you had a total of 4 children in the house. And, so you had some, sharing beds. So they went to sleep. And what happened next was crazy. It was sometime after midnight, someone wielding, here we go again, an axe, attacked the father first, killing him with the axe. Sarah, the wife, was the next victim. She was bludgeoned. So she was only hit with the blunt, she was beat with the blunt end of the axe, not the sharp.
Mm-hmm.
He was killed with the sharp end, which is really strange. So after he murdered them, he went and killed the 4 children. Well, there was 4 more children, and there were the 2 sisters that were staying. And then he went down to the parlor bedroom and he killed the 2 girls that were staying from another family.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Then he goes back upstairs and savagely attacks the already dead bodies of the Moore family. He whacked the husband an estimated 30 times, leaving the face unidentifiable.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was just horrific. Then the killer walked around the home, ritualistically covering all the mirrors, which was a very common practice when, for a wake,
Mm-hmm.
and covered the victims with pieces of cloth or clothing. He closed all the window blinds, and on the 2 windows without them, draped pieces of the family clothing on the window. He then returned to the girls' room downstairs, where he left the axe, believed taken from the Moore's own coal shed, and leaned it up against the wall. He washed his hands in a pail of water, made himself a plate of beans and some bread, and then locked the door at 5 a.m., and left.
Yep.
Now, what's really bizarre about this time period, because obviously the neighbor was concerned because this is a farm. It was Monday. The children weren't going to school. What was going on? And so that's how they were found. And so they had, back in the day, you had party lines. You had to call and get connected to whoever's house. So they let out this, everybody got a call in town about what had happened. So people started showing up. And they're going through the house. Once it was a full-blown spectacle.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
About 100 people stampeded through the rooms. The bodies are still there. The 8 victims are still in place. The marshal he let people handle the murder weapon. Now, of course, in that time period, there was no fingerprints, nothing. It wasn't until the doctor showed up, that was the county coroner, that told them to clear the house out. These people were taking pieces of the husband's skull as a souvenir.
Yeah. Well, this is not the first case I've heard of where that was done back in those times.
Yeah, and the local, they had an amateur photographer at the drugstore. He wanted to take pictures, and he was told this was too ghoulish. But back in the day, this time period, drugstores sold postcards of crime scenes.
Yes, they
It
did.
was popular. It
Mm-hmm.
was popular. Okay, so they had several people that they arrested for the murder. None of them ever got convicted. Well, the house, of course, changed hands multiple times and things had happened to it. And well, back in the 1990s, it came available, and this historian, he and his wife were historians, this historian, he decided that he was going to purchase the house and that they could restore it. So he purchased the house, and then he had to try to tell his wife what he had done, because there was such a history to this house.
Yeah.
So after he told his wife what he had done, they took the house and removed all of because there wouldn't have been plumbing back then when the time frame of this house happened. They took it back to what the house looked like during the time of the murder.
Mm-hmm.
It's on that, which of course made it on the National Register for Historic Places. So it was added in 1998 for that. But think about what happens when you do renovations.
Well, anytime you do work anywhere in a house that's had a history, you stir up what's there every
Yeah,
time.
exactly. Every time. And what's strange is that they took it back. Well, when kindred spirits again went to investigate it, guess who they found in the attic? Now, what was strange is they found, after they found the bodies and searched the house, they found 2 cigarette butts, a chair, and a little lamp. that you would light
Mm-hmm.
with it bulb off it, the wick down low enough to give just a barely light. So the murderer had been sitting in the house waiting for the opportunity. He was in the house more than likely when they got home.
Yeah, he was up there waiting. Whoever did it was upstairs waiting for them to come back.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So when kindred spirits went and investigated, they investigated the attic, and that's where they had the most activity. And it seemed like that's who they were communicating with. The person, when they transitioned, went back to that house. And I think because it was restored, it could have possibly drove that person back, you know,
Well, maybe. Um,
or he just went back because there was some documentation that showed that the two girls from the other family, their undergarments were missing.
yeah.
So it's kind of, you know what I'm saying?
I think when you're dealing with evil like this, and that's what this person is evil,
Yes.
they tend to get a thrill out of what they've done, and they like to go back to where they had their fun or their thrill and relive it. So I think that's what happens. Whether it was remodeled or not, I think he was there that whole time reliving his fun. It's just what I
Yes.
think.
Yeah.
You know.
That's what I think too. Yeah. So it's just interesting, to go over that. So Kim, what do you think about these haunted locations?
Oh, I think they're very, very interesting. I would like to go there, I would think, to the different ones, but I think that if you decide to go to those, you would really need to protect yourself and have your protection, your bubble up and everything, and be prepared to protect yourself from the overwhelming feelings that you're going to get there. But I imagine you can really experience some interesting stuff.
Yes. Now in if you go to Maplecroft, you want to be respectful to Lisbeth, and I think you probably would get more interaction. Going to the Velisca house, I would definitely want protection. This entity does not care for women, from what a lot of the investigations have shown. I would be very careful not to do any, which I always say never don't instigate. Don't try to instigate when you do any paranormal. This situation at that particular location, you definitely do not want to try to aggravate the entity.
Yeah, right.
I mean, that on a side note, because this is a very dark person, obviously. And what's really funny about the Velisca house, I'll say this real quick before I move on. The town of Velisca was originally named the Forks when it was a settlement. And then when the railroad came through, it was renamed by an employee of the railroad, D.N. Smith, and he named the town Velisca, believing it was a word from the Sac and Fox Native American tribe for pretty place or lovely place.
Mm-hmm.
But however, historians believe he mistook it for a different local Native American word, Waliska, which is Walliska, which means evil place.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So I thought that was interesting.
That yeah, definitely interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. So Kim,
Yeah.
what you got for some haunted items?
Okay. Well, hopefully these are as interesting as the stories that you've come up with for the haunted places. But the first one that I'm going to cover it's a painting that's called The Hands Resist Him. Now, this was painted by an artist back in. This was
That's what they
painted.
do.
Exactly, that's exactly what they do. This was painted back in 1972, I believe. And this artist painted this picture. It's supposed to be of him as a boy. And standing next to him is this doll, which is kind of a little bit of a disturbing looking doll. Carrie, you'd be totally creeped out because there's black eyes.
Yeah.
And behind him,
Yeah.
and behind him are little handprints that are painted on the glass door that's behind him. And that's where the name comes from, the hands resist him. The doll is holding, in this picture, a battery, and it's an old time battery. But reports state that some owners that have seen this painting come in at night and look at it, and sometimes that doll's not holding a battery, it's holding a gun. Other people have reported that in this print, because of course there were paintings printed, they've seen the boy trying to move his way out of the picture. There's unexplained physical sensations that people have while viewing this painting. From someone has fainted while looking at it, others feel like their throat's closing off when they're looking at it. Another person has started crying for no reason at all while looking at this painting. There was another report that a new Epson printer ate and mutilated the page time and time again as this person tried to download the image and print it out. It would never print out whenever he would try to download it. So it seems like every time
I couldn't look at it. When you told me what haunted items you're going to do, I went to look at it, and I'm like, oh no, oh no, oh no. I mean, it freaked me out, and I didn't even take a good look at it.
Right.
It was that initial psychic thing you get, like get out. It's like close it. Like going, I couldn't close it fast enough. It was it creeped me out.
Yeah. So that is this painting. Now, how it's haunted, who knows? But it is a painting that was done in the 1970s that anybody that has contact with it experiences something that is definitely uncomfortable and unusual for them. Hands that resist him. And I will put a picture of that up all these things whenever we do this. So I will warn you. Or at least a link to where you can look at it.
Put a link on it.
I'll link
Put a link
on
it. Yeah. Because it's so creepy that you don't want someone just to look at that and have the same. I mean, as an empath or a psychic, I mean that picture affected me, and I didn't know the story of it when I looked at it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You just said, okay, this is the name of it. I'm like, okay, whatever. Type it in Google. Whoa, my God! I went to images, which was a mistake.
Yes.
I should have read about it first.
Yeah.
I went to images and went, oh no, and that was it. That was it. I'm like, nope, I'm done. I'll wait to see what Kim says about it.
Exactly.
I'm not going back to that.
Yep. Okay.
Of course, it had a dowel in it, so
Of course. Yeah, of course. So the next one that I found, this one is from overseas. It was reported in England, and it is about a painting called Blazing Curse of the Crying Boy. Now, the painting's actually called The Crying Boy. So this curse is based on the painting itself. There were several different paintings along this line of children or crying individually. But this one is just such a sad little boy with these giant tears coming out of his eyes. And it is said that when that painting came out, there were like 50,000 prints of this painting that were sent out because people just fell in love with these paintings that were done. I think it was in like the 1950s, I believe. Don't quote me on that one. But there were reports, there was a fire was caused in this house, and the son was frying French fries in a skillet or chips in a skillet on the stovetop, and apparently the grease caught fire. Well, we know how all that happens. You know how grease can start a fire or whatever. But the odd part of the story is that the house was completely destroyed by this fire, except for the print of that crying boy. And this was something that one of the local firemen there had witnessed before. The brother of the homeowner of that house told that family to remove the print from their house because he had seen it in another fire that they had put out. There were several other fires, houses throughout the time since the release of that, where the only surviving object in the house was this crying boy painting that was not
Well,
touched by the flames.
yeah, I have to tell you, I came across one article, and you probably saw it, where how he found the crying boy was he was actually an orphan, a little street urchin is what they called it in
Mm-hmm.
Madrid. He was in Madrid, and the boy was mute. And because of sorrowful expression, that's what captivated the artist.
Mm-hmm.
But a Catholic priest told him to stay away from the boy, and that he said the boy named Don Boniello had ran away after seeing his parents die in a fire, and that since that his parents died in the fire, fires of unknown origin would break out wherever the boy went. It was happened with such frequency that he was given the nickname Diablo, which translates to devil. And the priest warned him against having anything to do with the child, and the artist adopted him anyway.
Yeah.
That's just crazy,
Yeah.
you know.
Right. So this newspaper that had printed all of these different stories involving this crying boy painting and prints, they wanted to squash the curse. They wanted to prove that it's not, that it's so safe, and that everybody that felt uneasy or uncomfortable about their paintings to send them to them, and they were going to dispose of it. They get all these paintings, and they do this live to try to burn the prints. And they finally did burn them, but it took 3 tries. They could not get it took them 3 definite tries to burn them all up because they all weren't burning.
Goodness.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, that's the story of the crying boy, Curse of the Crying Boy.
And that painting didn't creep me out like
No,
the
no.
first one.
No, because, it is a moving picture. A very touching painting. I can see why people were drawn to these prints. You feel a lot of emotion when you look at them. You feel sad for these children. They're just such sad children. You're very moved by them. And then to know that fire is tied to that one especially is just, creepy.
Yes, yes.
Another thing, when you go to different things in the history that have taken place in history, battlefields, all kinds of stuff like that, but especially if you visit Pompeii in Italy, it's best to pay respects for those that have suffered there or went through the tragedies or anything like that. But one thing you should never do, especially there at Pompeii, is take little souvenirs. And little souvenirs being picking up the little pieces that you find on the ground, whether it's a rock, which you think might be a rock and may not be a rock. It could be a little bone that you didn't realize was bone that's been preserved in ash or whatever the case may be, or that little bullet from the battlefield or anything like that. Because it is said that when you remove things like that, they are tied to those events. And if you take something like that from Pompeii, people have been known to suffer from illnesses, financial troubles, family troubles, and all kinds of other things. Bad luck happen to you when you've taken artifacts from places like Pompeii. And this is such a frequent thing that happens, meaning what happens is Pompeii starts receiving little packages, like the archaeological sites or the tourism place there in Pompeii. They receive packages and envelopes all the time from tourists that are mailing to them the item that they took and explaining, please, I'm sorry I took this. I've had this happen to me, this happened to me, this happened to me. I'm returning it to you so that this will stop. And supposedly their bad situations stop, whatever's been going on with them. Things are cursed that shouldn't be taken. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
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 So you really should try to refrain from taking anything from these areas, because you could experience very bad things in your life because you're taking things from what would really be considered sacred ground, a place where people have passed, and I don't think it's worth it. You know?
Well, why chance it, right?
Yeah, why chance it? Exactly.
Now, I came across an article, which you probably saw it. It was posted October 4th, 2022 by Jessica Scott Romano. And it says, "Don't take things that don't belong to you. The Pompeii curse." And, so basically she visited Pompeii in 2017. And she goes, "I personally didn't see any signs saying not to collect any rocks, but it's pretty much understood that you shouldn't take artifacts from a famous or still active archaeological site. Although I may or may not have picked up a lava rock just outside the grounds, it was actually 1,000-year-old lava. For crying out loud, I couldn't resist." That's what she put in parentheses. She says, "Chose to ignore, took it home. It's like, it's just a rock, right?" And then she says that then the curse began. She returned her home in Canada, and that's where she was diagnosed with breast cancer at once, not once but twice, had to go a double mastectomy.
Mm-hmm.
She just turned 36, and her family suffered some severe financial trouble with no end in sight, leading her to, that she just couldn't get ahead in life. That's how she felt. And instead of just talking it up to run-of-the-mill bad luck, she claimed that her misfortune was due to her stealing the artifacts from Pompeii 15 years ago.
Yep.
She says, "I was young and dumb, and I wanted a piece of history." So she took a piece of history, captured it in time so much, so she basically had to admit that she was ready to believe the curse, and she returned it.
Yeah, yeah. And that's because you just never know, especially, in ancient history and back history, you just never know what really took place in these areas. And people, if they feel very wronged back in those times, they do curse the ground, or they do curse anyone who takes anything from this sacred place. And, I think that should be a warning to anyone that you really shouldn't be taking things because you don't know what happened or who was upset by what happened there and what they may have done to the land. And, things are cursed, I mean, look at, King Tut. That whole tomb there was cursed, and everybody that had any kind of a connection with opening that tomb up to begin with died horrible deaths.
Yeah.
Yeah, they attribute it to the fungus or whatever, mold or whatever that was growing in there, bacteria or whatever. But can you account for all of that?
No.
Can all of that be attributed to it? Whenever you hear about how people related to things have passed, it's the same thing with the Hope Diamond. I mean, every person that has worn that diamond has had a death that's been horrible, even being sent to the guillotine. So just a warning.
Yeah. Well, when you think about it, there's so much paranormal that we don't know about. When you think about, I believe curses are real. Anybody that has any research done, do any research on, different types of things that, like we do, and psychics and that, we always drawn to research more things, and whether your spiritual practice does involve that, it's a real thing. And I think you should always you be more of the expect it to be real than to be in the, oh my gosh, it was real category. So that's just my thing, is there's so much we don't know that happens in the supernatural world.
Well, right. Think about, you're just driving along in your car and somebody does something to you in front of you, and you sit there and say, well, I hope you get a flat tire the next time you go around a curve. And what happens? That could happen, because that is kind of like putting a curse out there.
It's exactly what you're doing.
Right.
Yeah, and it's very bad. It's very bad karma.
It is bad karma. I mean, besides the karma effect of it, but I'm just saying you just don't know who could have said something in the past or whatever on antiques and such too, because you just don't know what happens to things. And things get haunted. They do, because people are so attached to their things. Some people get pretty darn attached to their items, so they just come back to be with it, I guess, or they've left the residual.
Well, and it's also what is the item, because I think some items are more open to be vessels that things can inhabit.
Oh, well, that's true. That too, yeah.
So it may not necessarily be an entity that was attached to it. Just could be.
Yeah, just like dolls. We that's why I didn't do any
Yes.
dolls, because Carrie's like, no dolls.
Yes.
Well, I snuck one in that picture, and that's it.
Yeah, it didn't go well for me.
I got the same kind of creep whenever I looked at that too. I was just like, oh, wow.
Yeah, I got some good, I mean, some, not good, but I got energy off that was like, oh, it was strong. It was like, okay, thanks, Kim. I'll get even with you later. It's like what that was.
Yeah, but with some things, you could just return it back where you got it from. Say you're sorry, or whatever the case may be. Other things may require more intervention. you know, some things you've been known to bury and not get back out again.
Yes.
Bury off your property.
Yeah.
Or
Yes.
thrown off a bridge so it goes into the water.
Thrown off a bridge into the water.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's been known to happen.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, when you buy things, in today's world, especially after COVID, you buy a lot of things online, so you can't really get the feel or the vibe of it.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and I had that situation with a Labradorite stone.
Yeah. Yeah, you did.
Yeah. Yeah. Got rid of it.
So, anyway, there's so many different haunted places, haunted objects. Just go searching online. It's really interesting to do the research on these things. There were so many different objects, haunted things that, I'd love to have done more, but I think it was getting to be a little, I was getting a little obsessed with it. So it was time to cut my list,
I gave her a limit on how many she could do.
She did. I had like 22 things. I was like, oh, this one's good. Oh, this one's good. Then she's like, nope, we're only going to do this many. I was like, oh, which ones do I do? So I hope you enjoyed the ones I did do, though, because it's really interesting.
Yeah. Well, just if you want to look at the hand resist, we've been warned.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we'll make that one, don't do it if you're 17 or under.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not it's just the creepiness that comes off that painting.
Oh, the whole thing is just creepy. And it was a poem that his wife wrote to him from his childhood, about his childhood. And I'm like, okay, this is just creepy. I don't know.
Well, poems can work two different ways. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
They could, there can be intention in a poem.
Yeah. Well, and in a painting.
So, yeah. So was she mad when she wrote the poem? I don't know. But, yeah.
Supposedly not.
Yeah, supposedly not. But, again, you don't know what someone's intention is when they do things and such. So it's just, when you come across those haunted items, yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I always find it best to take, like when you see something, whatever your first experience, whatever that first hit is you get when you see it or touch it,
mm-hmm.
You go with it. Don't try to talk yourself into something different, because that's usually spot on.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's like when going into an antique store. If you get me in one, my hands are crossed. My arms are crossed. I don't touch anything in an antique store at all. So
yeah, I do better at antique stores than you do.
Yeah, I can't handle those. Mm-mm.
Yeah,
nope.
Yeah. So I'm not afraid of having antiques, but I select them carefully. Now, and having said that, I did pick up an antique that I was really drawn to when I had a little shop at one point, and it turned out to be haunted. it came with a man in a gray business suit. He would show up and I would be like, okay, and he'd walk around and then he'd disappear, and then I never said anything, and I had someone come into the shop that was psychic, and she's like, who's the man in the gray suit? Like, I don't know. But he hangs out a lot. And she's like, well, he likes you. And I said, well, it's good to know, because I thought he liked me too, but yeah.
Well, he wasn't causing any problems with you. He was just there. So.
No, he wasn't. It was just there.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, he started meandering around the whole strip center, though. He was getting seen in other areas. So he's very curious.
Well, he had nothing better to do.
And so, but what's funny is, though, when I moved that particular item out of the shop, I closed the shop down, he stayed in the shop. He didn't come with me. He didn't come with the item, so evidently he wanted to stay there.
Found something better.
Yeah.
We all know my story about my haunted TV that we don't have.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
or that we took care of, I should say. But, yeah.
I didn't give you much choice in that one.
No.
Get that out of the house. What are you doing?
And your friend who had the haunted chair.
Yes.
So just shows you things can be haunted.
Yep. And sometimes when you're drawn to something, you're drawn to it for a reason you're not sure about.
Yes, definitely.
But as long as you're not getting any bad energy or anything like that, it should be cool.
Yep.
But I do recommend smudging anything you buy at an antique store before you bring it into your house.
And I recommend...
That's a side note.
And I recommend smudging every time you leave a haunted place.
Yes. Yeah, and do be mindful if you during Halloween there's a lot of people going to haunted houses and they want activity. It's best not to provoke, when you're out doing things like that, because there's a lot of energy that is present during Halloween season.
Mm-hmm.
That draws darker entities forth. So just be real mindful.
Yep, definitely.
Well, Kim, is there anything else you want to add?
Well, I just wanted to say I hope everyone enjoyed this Halloween episode.
Yeah, me too. It was always a lot of fun to do the Halloween episode, although we've only done 2. Still a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's our 2nd annual Halloween episode.
Yeah. If anybody has any stories, spooky stories, Halloween stories, creepy stories, just ghost stories, anything like that you'd like to share, personal experiences, anything, feel free to email us at psychicbent1@gmail.com, because we would like to really put together fill-in episodes throughout the year of stories of your experiences and such.
Yeah, it would be cool to have a listener story episode.
Yeah.
That'd be perfect. All right. Thank you, everyone, for listening to this episode of Psychic Bent, and we look forward to seeing you in another 2 weeks. Have a great night. Bye.
Bye. May your light shine bright. Thank you so much for listening to our podcast, Psychic Bent. If you enjoyed Psychic Bent, please like, follow, rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to Psychic Bent. We can be reached on Facebook at Psychic Bent Podcast. Our email address is psychicbent1@gmail.com. May your light shine bright.